A photo shoot turns deadly. It should have captured memory. Instead, it captured a crime scene in the making. 2 Polaroids, one with a gun, one with a knife. It turns from party props into prosecution exhibits. Minutes later, sirens flood a Las Vegas street, and a young photographer, Mark Gone, is on the ground with a wound that stops everything. The person police say held the gun is 20-year-old Alessandra Blee. She tells him it was an accident. She thought the gun wasn't loaded. She thought it was just for the shot. The problem? The room and the records may say otherwise. But that wasn't the whole story. Welcome back to the Criminal Minds. Before we continue, thank you for being here. If you want more deep dives like this, hit subscribe. It's free, but for us it's real support and motivation to keep going. I appreciate you. It's late enough to call it morning, early enough that neighbors still think it's night. For people who are inside, Blee Gone, another woman and her boyfriend. They were drinking. There's an idea, a quick photo shoot before bed. Someone pulls out a handgun. In the next 20 minutes, choices stack up. Who holds what, who stands where, and who trusts the words it's not loaded. By 5 a.m., police arrive to the sound of a 911 caller, trying to explain something that no one can take back. And the first things officers notice aren't the words. They're the pictures. On a table, 2 Polaroids sit like a dare. In one, the other woman holds a knife. In another, Blee poses with a gun. Prosecutors love photos because jurors believe their eyes. A still image can't explain intent, but it narrows the story. The gun was a surprise. It was part of the plan. A prop if the defense is right, a weapon if the state is. Those pictures are a time-stamped bridge between play and harm. The bridge gets shakier once you ask the only question that matters. How was a gun loaded? The 911 caller owns a gun. He says he removed the magazine, cleared the chamber, and locked the slide before going to sleep. His girlfriend later tells police that right before the photo shoot, she saw the magazine back in the gun. Who reloaded it? When? Did anyone check the chamber? Safety rules are simple. Treat every gun as loaded. Point at no one. Finger off the trigger until you intend to fire. If the jury believes a group ignored those basics, that's not a prop gone wrong. That's recklessness with a deadly tool. So what does "it was an accident" even mean in court? In plain English, accident sounds like no crime. In court, it can still be a crime. If the state shows gross negligence, like handling a gun without verifying it's unloaded, pointing at a human, or mixing alcohol with firearms, jurors can land on involuntary manslaughter or even second-degree murder if the conduct looks like a depraved disregard for life. Intent is a spectrum. On one end is premeditation. On the other is mistake. Most real cases live in the messy middle, what a prosecutor will call malice, and a defense lawyer will reframe as carelessness. And then there's the online trail that could tilt the room. Investigators say Blee as social media showed an embrace of gun culture, a bullseye tattoo, and quoted lines about shooting people that read like dark jokes until they sit next to a body. The defense will say posts aren't reality. The state will say they show familiarity with weapons and undercut the "I didn't know" claim. Whether jurors see those posts depends on admissibility. If a judge agrees they prove knowledge, intent, or lack of mistake, they might come in. If not, they stay online and out of the box. Either way, those words change how people hear the accident story. These are police reference allegations from court records. Nevada's open murder charge hands the menu to the jury. Prosecutors present the whole case. The finder of fact decides whether it's first-degree planning, second-degree malice/recklessness, or some level of manslaughter. The sentencing spread is huge. Life at one end, a decade at the middle, for years or so at the low end for involuntary. For the defense, the strategy is simple. Pull the jury down the ladder from murder to manslaughter by making intent look impossible and recklessness look human. That strategy lives or dies on witnesses. Jurors crave neutral narrators. Here, the 911 caller isn't neutral. He owns a gun, but his timeline matters. What he did to firearm, when he last saw the magazine, who was awake, who was drinking, what positions people took for the Polaroids, what he heard before the shot. His girlfriend's detail, that the magazine was back in right before the shoot, could be crucial. If she's firm on that, the prop starts looking less like a misunderstanding and more like a loaded choice. People keep bringing up Russ. Let's be clear why this case is different. On a movie set, you have an armorer, protocols, and a chain of custody for weapons. Here, you have friends and private home, alcohol, and no armor to blame or to trust. In the Baldwin matter, an assistant director said cold gun. The armorer's role loomed large, and industry practices complicated responsibility. In this house, basic safety rules are practices. And if the jury believes those rules were ignored, the comparison helps the prosecution, not the defense. So how will 12 people in a box actually sort this out? Juries layer facts. Premeditation needs planning, messages, threats, a motive that looks like a line rather than a ... Second degree needs malice. Conduct so reckless it reads as indifference to life, e.g., reloading a gun and treating it like a toy. Involuntary manslaughter needs negligence, a terrible failure to check, to clear, to control the muzzle ... Where they land depends on what happened with the magazine, who handled the slide, and whether the prop story survives scrutiny. If the jurors believe someone put the mag back in and no one checked the chamber, the bottom of the ladder starts shaking. And the path to trial will shape what jurors even get to see. Expect motions in limine over social posts, relevance versus prejudice, the Polaroids, probative versus inflammatory, and any statements about who reloaded. The state will push Rule 404B, style arguments, knowledge, absence of mistake. The defense will counter with Rule 403. Too prejudicial, too far removed, doesn't prove this act. In open murder, both sides will teach as much as they argue. Prosecutors will teach safety rules and how they were broken. Defense will teach reasonable doubt. Could anyone prove what Blee knew at the exact moment her finger was on the frame? However it's framed, the night leaves a lesson no one should need. Lessons from a night that should have been photos only. If a gun's in the room, it's not a prop. If it's in the shot, triple check the chamber. No alcohol. Guns make their own kind of drunk when rules slip. And if anyone says, "I think it's empty," treat that sentence like a siren warning. None of this excuses what happened to Mark Gone. It only explains how a few casual choices can roll into a moment that erases a life and turns a camera into a timeline. This case will hinge on what the gun's condition really was and what people knew in that room. If you were on the jury and you heard a witness say the magazine had been reinserted minutes before the photo, would that push you toward malice, recklessness, or negligence? And what would it take, what piece of proof, to change your mind? Drop your take below. I'll be in the comments reading.